Hey guys, Steve here, Fanatic Perspective. Hope everyone's gotten off to a good start in the new year. Got some Cowboys talk. So Brice Butler, I know many of you have heard by now, did the circuit today on Fox Sports Undisputed, as well as the Colin Cowherd show, and he unpacked a lot of stuff. I had mentioned in one of my end of season videos that he was, just by some of the tweets and stuff, I was sensing that, he was pretty much on his way out and looking forward to free agency. But I mean, man, I've never really, I've heard Brice Butler speak, maybe 2 minutes, but he went through a lot. I mean, from the Dez stuff to the Tony stuff. We'll start off with just where he felt he was, his place within the offense. He had mentioned that they, kind of threw him in there in the third quarter and, just lack of playing time. And a lot of this stuff, I think it was big because a Cowboys player that was on this current roster on a team that we heavily criticized and underperformed, came out and validated and confirmed a lot of the things that many of us were thinking, many of us have been talking about. Starting with the Dez Bryant stuff. I mean, the lack of route running, the lack of explosiveness in his game versus what we saw from Brice Butler. I mean, one of the things he kind of highlighted in his conversation with Skip and Shannon was he only caught 15 passes, but he had 314 yards and 3 touchdowns, which was like almost 22 yards per catch average, which led the NFL. He was actually statistically one of the best deep threats in the NFL, and he only did that with 23 targets. And one of the things he cited was the targets that receivers get, and I think that was telling because obviously the guy that was receiving on many of the targets was Dez Bryant, and the things and insight that he provided towards Dez, and I'll provide the link to the conversation he had with Skip and Shannon as well as the conversation he had with Colin Cowherd in the description box below on the video. But I mean, again, like I said at the beginning, he confirmed everything we thought. The lack of route running ability, Dez's need to move to the slot. I mean, allegedly he had a conversation with Dez and told him he needs to be more like Larry, as in Fitzgerald in Arizona, who, as he got older in his career and lost some of that explosiveness on the outside, he redefined his game and moved inside and, has been catching over 100 passes in a Bruce Arians offense. I say in a Bruce Arians offense because it's not just on the player to reinvent himself, it's on the coaching staff to feature that player to his strengths and to his abilities. And I think that's what Brice was trying to get across. Many people in the comments are upset with Brice. I think right now, for what I'm seeing, Cowboys fans are a little split on this. A lot of people are upset with Brice because he's coming off like a snitch, somebody who's disgruntled, lack of playing time, and Brice had inconsistent hands in terms of my evaluation of him. Obviously, he was had down the field speed, good size, didn't always play to his size, but I also thought he was one of our better receivers in the scramble drill. A lot of his big plays came when Dak broke the pocket. He was a guy that knew how to roll away from coverage and find a spot downfield. So, all those things are positives from him, but I think the coach's faith in him with his hands was I guess the only thing I could really point to, because to be honest with you, when Dez went down last season in 2016, Brice stepped up real well. I remember the San Francisco game, the Green Bay game. He was huge when Dez was out. So it was, from a player development standpoint, he was very critical with that because, and going back to my original point about the coaches when I brought up Bruce Arians, Brice was incredibly critical of the day-to-day operation in terms of some of the schematic things and how they're coaching guys and how they allow certain personalities to roam and kind of hush others. Obviously he was complimentary of a Jason Witten, but he said, and this goes more to the Cowherd interview, that guys who are lifers, guys who have time in, and he said in the nature of a traditional football program, the people that talk are your lifers, your middle linebacker, and your quarterback. And lifer is like a Charles Woodson, Jason Witten, and those are some of the examples he used. But on our team, who's talking a lot? Dez. We hear a lot. Even stuff from Zeke, like in terms of the focus. So that was interesting to hear his perspective, because he's also been with another organization. He was in Oakland, and not that Oakland has been a model organization by any means, but it was interesting to hear him compare and contrast those two situations. So some people are looking at Brice right now and saying, hey, he's coming off as a snitch. Other people are in the camp of he's coming off as a truth teller, and validating certain things that, Cowboys fans, we thought to be true. Where I stand on that is I believe Brice is telling the truth. I don't think he has any reason to come out and make stuff up and that could easily be discredited. But I also believe he has to go. And I believe there's a code, and I think he kind of violated our code, even though the stuff is true. The manner and the direct nature in which he was critical. When I say violated the code, I mean in terms of being back with the Cowboys next year. And I think just from looking at Brice, unless there's he said unless there's significant change, he won't be back. I don't expect him to be back. I expect him to move on. I don't think he was happy here, obviously, with his role. But the other thing that he mentioned. So before I get into the other point, both things can be true. He can be telling the truth, and he can be breaking the code of trust. And I think he broke the code of trust with the Cowboys. Won't be back, but I think everyone needs to take to heart the things that he said. Moving on to my next point, one of the things he touched on, and I've seen this for years, is when somebody displays a particular skill set or does something well, the Cowboys put that person in a box. And that goes back to my criticism with Jason Garrett and the offensive coaching staff. Putting people in a box, not allowing people to evolve their game. So much of our frustration with Dez is around Dez's development, but I don't think we've put enough onus on the coaches. And, yes, we fired Derek Dooley, the wide receiver coach, and, that's great. But Brice was like, hey, I only ran vertical routes. I was just a downfield route runner. Like, I didn't get to run underneath stuff and double moves underneath and all that. And Dez runs slants and comebacks, and Cole Beasley runs speed outs and drags, and Jason Witten does the Y route. And like, that's the box that they've put these guys in, and that's the confines of our offense. He was very critical of that. And what I'll end the video with was his probably the biggest thing that he unpacked was Colin asked him about the difference between Tony Romo in the huddle and Dak Prescott in the huddle. And he all but said Tony Romo, which we all knew was running the entire offense. But I was very surprised to hear that Tony Romo was actually the one doing the installations Monday through Friday for the entire offense. And he basically said the coordinators were just sitting there as Tony Romo does everything, sets the plays, sets protections, and I don't know of any other situation in the NFL that is running in such a manner. He even said, he was shocked by that when he got to Dallas, because when he was in Oakland, the coordinator and the coaches did all those things. Now, granted, Derek Carr, like he mentioned, was in his second year at the time, but the coaches were, he said, much more hands-on than he experienced in Dallas. And that literally goes to everything we've seen on the field in terms of guys standing there and not adjusting. It's not surprising to hear these things, but it's just another jab at us to hear it aloud and somebody confirm it, somebody that was obviously in the situation. So, man, I think there's going to be a lot of fallout from these things, and as the offseason continues, if other guys leave the team or whatever. I mean, I don't know if anybody will speak out the way Brice did, but let me know what you guys think. I mean, it's a lot he unpacked. Like I said, check out those interviews, and we'll continue to discuss. But as always, I appreciate everyone's support of this channel, and we'll continue to produce some more content. Thank you.